Hi students, this is Aisha, a third year MBBS student. Today let us discuss about breathing and exchange of gases from human physiology unit. Okay, this is a very important chapter and very scoring chapter and easiest chapter. It is all conceptual based. If we imagine all the processes, you will remember permanently. So it's all about imagination. I hope you will coordinate. So first we will discuss the introduction. Okay, introduction is very easy. That is, first of all, what is breathing? Inhalation of O2 and exhalation of CO2. Inspiration of O2 and expiration of CO2. How CO2 is produced? O2 from atmosphere, it will be inspired. Okay, but what about CO2? It is produced by, see, now glucose molecules, amino acids and fatty acids all will be there, with the help of O2 catabolic reaction will occur. Catabolic means breaking down. This glucose will break into small molecules and energy will be produced. ATP means energy will be produced and CO2 will be produced. CO2 is a harmful gas. That is why it has to be released. Where all this process will occur? In the cells of an organism. Okay. That is what they are saying. This O2 is provided to cells of an organism and the CO2 is released out, which is produced by the cells. Okay. So this is just pictorial form. Now in the atmosphere O2 will be there. It is inspired and CO2 which is produced by cells is expired. This is called as breathing, commonly known as respiration. Okay. So we are done with that. Now respiratory organs. What are respiratory organs? In humans we know lungs are respiratory organs. We come under mammals. Actually it is animal kingdom topic, but let us see briefly because in NCERT it has mentioned. So first thing, in lower vertebrates like sponges and flatworms, they need not to have any specialized organ for respiration. Okay, just a body surface is enough. Through body surfaces only, simple diffusion process, respiration will occur. Next one is earthworm. Earthworm will be having cuticles. Cuticles are structures through which respiration will occur. In insects like arthropods, tracheal tubes will be there. Tracheal tubes, through tracheal tubes, respiration will occur. Next one, aquatic arthropods. Aquatic arthropod means the arthropods which live in water, like mollusks or fishes. They have gills. Okay, gills helps in branchial respiration. It is not bronchial, it is branchial. Branchial respiration through gills by mollusks and fishes. Next, terrestrial forms. Terrestrial forms means which live on land, like amphibian, reptile, birds and mammals. They all have lungs, which is a vascularized bag. Vascularized bag means what? This lung will be there, organ. It is surrounded by blood vessels. That is why vascularized bag. Next one is amphibian. See, amphibian live in water and as well as land, So terrestrial form of amphibian will have lung, and some amphibian like frogs. Frogs live in both land and water, That is why it has skin. Through skin respiration will occur. That is called as cutaneous respiration. Remember this branchial respiration, aquatic arthropods, fishes and mollusks. And next one is lung, that is terrestrial forms. Lung means pulmonary respiration. Okay. And next cutaneous respiration, that is by frogs, amphibian, through skin. So I think it is clear from the introduction. part and respiratory organs. So we will move further in human respiratory system. Actually, it is just the pathway of respiratory system. It is very easy. You have to understand. See, we have a nose. Actually, it starts with a pair of external nostrils. Nose have a pair of nostrils. So, through nostrils, nasal chamber. Next, pharynx. Pharynx is a common passage for food and air. See, here it is a mouth, buccal cavity and pharynx, then esophagus. It is a food pipe. Here it is nostrils, nasal cavity, pharynx and then larynx and trachea. Trachea is a wind pipe, air pipe. Okay. So here pharynx is a common structure between food pipe and wind pipe. Okay, that is what they are saying. Common passage for food and air. Okay. Next one is, now we don't want to discuss about food pipe. We discussed in digestion and absorption. This is respiration. That's why nasal chamber, pharynx and larynx. Here larynx will be there. Okay. It is a cartilaginous box. Okay. Whenever air will passes through this box, no, sound production will occur. Voice sound production will occur. That is why it is called sound box. Here you can see it is a thin elastic cartilaginous flap that is called epiglottis. What is the function of epiglottis? See, generally epiglottis will be in open state, but whenever, because air should pass, right, and respiration process should occur, no, that's why. But whenever we take food, at that time this epiglottis will close like this. At the opening of the trachea it will close, so that the food will go into esophagus, that is food pipe. It prevents the entry of food into the trachea. Okay. Now we learnt about larynx and now trachea. What is trachea? Trachea is a straight tube. You can feel it. It is a straight tube. On you can feel over your neck the tracheal rings and trachea. It is a straight tube up to mid thoracic cavity. See, this is thorax. Below diaphragm it is abdomen. This is trachea. Trachea up to mid of the thoracic cavity, you can see it is present. Here at mid of the thoracic cavity. Behind on the back side there will be vertebral column, right? I think you all know it. And there are different types of vertebral column like cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral and coccygeal. Here the point where trachea will divide into primary bronchi, there we find thoracic vertebra. Thoracic vertebra, which thoracic vertebra? Fifth thoracic vertebra. At that point this trachea will divide into primary bronchi. Okay, I think you understood it. See, trachea and right and left primary bronchi is present at T5. Okay. After primary bronchi, again it will subdivide and it forms secondary bronchi. Again it will divide and form tertiary bronchi. Again it will divide into small tubules, that is initial bronchiole. Again it will divide, that is terminal bronchiole. Started initial and a terminal bronchiole. And alveolar duct will be there. Some duct should be there, no, to reach the ultimate alveoli. That's it. At last alveoli. Alveoli is a thin, you can see it is a thin, see, irregular walled, thin irregular wall, and it is vascularized bag like structure, you can see, and here all blood vessels will be there. That is why it is vascularized bag like structure, that is alveoli. I think you are clear with the pathway. Here you can see What comprises the lung? What comprises the lung? See, I will show you here. See, it is trachea. Trachea is outside the lung. See, it is outside the lung. But what is inside the lung? What comprises the lung? Primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchiole, primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, initial bronchiole and terminal bronchiole, alveolar duct and alveoli. All this comprises the lung. That is what it is said here. Bronchi, primary, secondary, tertiary, bronchiole, initial and terminal, and alveolar duct and alveoli comprises the lung. It is a branching network. One more thing I have to say is here, lung is covered by two membrane, double layered membrane, that is pleural membrane. Okay, between two membranes there is a pleural fluid. What is the function of pleural fluid? It reduces the friction on the lung surface. If somebody hit on the chest, so it reduces the friction of that hit, okay, and it protects from severe damage. And you can see one more basic thing is the inner lining is there, no, inner pleural membrane. It is in close proximity to the lung. Of course, it is inside, no, covering the lung in close proximity. Whereas outer layer is there, no, outer membrane, that is covering close proximity to the thoracic cavity. Okay, thoracic lining, it is close to thoracic lining, and inner membrane is close to lung surface. Okay, I think you are clear up to here. Okay, now again the same thing we have to discuss, the passage of respiratory system from external nostrils, nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, initial bronchiole, terminal bronchiole, alveolar duct, alveoli. Okay, so here you have to remember one thing is, this nostrils are there, no, from nostril to terminal bronchiole, nostril to up to terminal bronchiole. It is a conducting part of respiratory system. Okay, and alveolar duct and alveoli are there, no, they are exchange part. You might be thinking that at any part of the respiratory system like trachea or bronchi, their respiration and exchange of gases will occur. No, up from nostril to terminal bronchiole, it is just conducting, means transporting the gases. Actual diffusion of gases, where it is occurring? In the alveoli and alveolar duct. That's why it is called exchange part, and all these are conducting part. Okay, one more thing you have to remember, that is, I will tell later. Okay, so you got an idea about the conducting part and exchange part. So let us know the function of the conducting part. There are 4 functions of conducting part. First one is, as I told you, transport of atmospheric air to alveoli. Second thing is, in the atmospheric air, some foreign particles will be there. So that's why it clears from foreign particle. And third one is humidification. Humidification means adding moisture. Actually, atmospheric air will be very dry. It should add moisture for easy pathway. Okay. And next one is temperature regulation to body temperature. Atmospheric air may be more than body temperature or less than body temperature. So it regulates the temperature according to body temperature. If it is more atmospheric temperature is more than body temperature, then it will reduce the temperature and comes to the body temperature. Okay, that is the temperature regulation. So function of conducting part are transport of gases, clear the foreign particle, humidification, temperature regulation. Second, what is the function of exchange part? I told you it is the actual site of diffusion of gases between the blood and atmosphere. Okay. So this is about introduction, and here also something is there where lungs are situated. Okay, lungs are surrounded completely by all different type of structures, from back side, from front side, from sideways, and from downward also. Okay, backward means dorsally, back side dorsally by vertebral column. Okay, and ventrally means front side by sternal bone. See, sternum bone. And laterally means sideways by ribs, and downward by dome shaped diaphragm. See, it is dome shaped, no? Dome shaped diaphragm. So once again you can tell with me: dorsally by vertebral column, ventrally by sternum, laterally by rib, and lower side by dome shaped diaphragm. See, lung is situated in, it is situated in thoracic chamber. Okay, anatomically it is a airtight chamber. Air can't escape from this chamber. Okay, airtight chamber. Anatomical setup, the setup is like this. See, back side with vertebral column, ventrally sternum, laterally ribs, and lower side diaphragm. The anatomical setup of the lung in thorax is in such a way that now these lungs are there. No, lungs will be in close proximity to the thoracic cavity. I told you before, right? The outer pleural membrane is in close contact with the thoracic cavity, right? So it will be attached to the thoracic cavity only, very much closer. So any change in the volume of the thoracic cavity, if any change will occur in the volume of the thoracic cavity, it will reflect on the pulmonary cavity. Any change will occur in the thoracic cavity will reflect in the pulmonary cavity also. Okay, that kind of anatomical setup will be there in the thorax. Okay, which is essential for breathing. For breathing, this is essential because we can't change the volume of the lung. See, we can't alter the pulmonary volume. That is why these lungs is in close contact with the thoracic cavity. So any change in the thoracic cavity, it will reflect on the lung pulmonary volume. Okay, this is all about it. Next one, we will go to respiration. Respiration, see, it includes 5 steps. It is very, very easy. It is not at all complex. If you understand, it will be very easy. See, respiration is so simple. First, atmospheric O2 will be there, no? It will be inhaled, and in this O2 will be more in the lung, and in the capillaries, blood capillaries will be there, no? All deoxygenated blood will go near lung to purify. Okay, now O2 will be high in the lung, no? The deoxygenated blood means CO2 rich blood. Okay, that will exchange the gases here. Okay, O2 will come inside the capillary and CO2 will go outside. First thing is, okay, heart will be there, students. Now from heart, actually from organs, I will just tell you this, these are organs. Okay, organs need oxygen. So what happens, artery will be there, systemic artery. From heart, it carries oxygenated blood and it will give to the organs, and organs here utilizes oxygen and gives CO2. This CO2 will be carried by systemic vein. Systemic vein means deoxygenated. Systemic vein carries the deoxygenated blood which contains CO2. Okay, like inferior vena cava and superior vena cava. carries the deoxygenated blood and it will go to the heart. And from heart, now we have to purify the deoxygenated blood, of course, right? In the lung there is purified air, because from atmospheric oxygen it will enter the lung. Oxygen will be more in the lung. That's why the deoxygenated blood which is received from the organs, it goes to heart, and from heart through pulmonary artery. It is an exception. Generally veins carry the deoxygenated blood, but in the heart, which is going near the lungs, one vein will be there, okay, which deoxygenated blood will be going near the heart. We should not call it as vein, we have to call it as pulmonary artery. Remember, whenever deoxygenated blood is going near the lungs, from which are going near the lungs, which is going away, that is why pulmonary means going near the lung, pulmonary away, that is why artery, which carries the deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood will be there, and from atmospheric O2 which will enter the lung, here exchange of gases will occur. CO2 will go into lung and O2 will come into the pulmonary vein, means into the blood capillary. It will become oxygenated. See, here it is the reverse terms. Pulmonary vein means from lungs to it is going near the heart, okay, purified oxygenated blood is going, okay, but the name is different. We have to remember pulmonary vein. Now from heart to it is oxygenated and we have to supply it to organs. That is why it is systemic artery, that is aorta, and it will supply. This is the process of circulation which I have told you. Now let us discuss about the respiration. First step in respiration is breathing or pulmonary ventilation. Now when we breathe, atmospheric O2 will enter into the lung and through the capillary exchange, I told no, from heart deoxygenated blood will come. That blood is rich in CO2. CO2 will exchange with O2, okay, atmospheric O2 will exchange with CO2. First one is what? Pulmonary ventilation, means from lungs O2 is going into the lungs, that is pulmonary respiration or breathing. O2 will exit out. Second is diffusion of gases across the alveolar membrane. Now see, in the alveolar membrane only the actual diffusion will occur. Now capillary, like pulmonary artery, CO2 rich and this is O2 rich. CO2 will go here, O2 will come into the capillary and it will form pulmonary vein, that is oxygenated rich. That is diffusion of gases across the alveolar membrane. Now what is the third step? Now transport of gases by blood. Now gases are transporting in the blood only. It goes to heart and then it goes to the tissues. Next one is fourth step. Fourth step is, here also again diffusion will occur. Diffusion occurs at the alveolar level and at tissue level also, okay. At tissue level what happens? Tissue will be so much working, okay. I told it utilizes the O2, glucose, and it produces ATP and CO2. CO2 will be rich in the tissues and this systemic artery is rich in O2. Again it will be exchanging the CO2 and O2. O2 will be rich in systemic artery, CO2 will be rich in tissues. So CO2 will enter into the blood vessels and O2 will enter into the tissue. And now blood rich in CO2 will become deoxygenated and become systemic vein. Systemic vein again goes to heart. So here diffusion of O2 and CO2 between the blood and tissues, okay. So this is the fourth step. And the fifth step is, now O2 will be entered into the tissue. Here the catabolic process will occur. I told you in the previous only, see, catabolic reaction in the cells, means tissues, O2 will enter into tissues by use of glucose and amino acid and fatty acid. ATP will be generated and CO2 will be released. This CO2 will enter into the deoxygenated vessel, that is systemic vein. See, I hope you are understanding. Utilization of O2 by the cells for catabolic reaction, and it releases the CO2 into the systemic vein. This is called cellular respiration, because cellular respiration, O2 plus glucose gives rise to ATP plus CO2. So this is the steps of respiration. I will just tell quickly once again as brief. Just remember these steps. I just explained you in whole, because the same process we will learn in the next slides. There you will understand still better. But here respiration involves, first thing is breathing or pulmonary ventilation. Breathing or pulmonary ventilation means what? Atmospheric O2 is utilized by the lung and CO2 from the lung is released outside. This is called as breathing or pulmonary ventilation. Second one is what? Diffusion of gases across the alveolar membrane. This pulmonary artery, that is containing deoxygenated blood and alveolar rich in O2, will exchange the gases. O2 will enter into blood vessels and CO2 will enter into the lung. From lung it will exit out. Okay. Here diffusion of gases will occur across the alveolar membrane. Now it will become oxygenated blood. No. Now transport of gases by the blood. And again here also one more diffusion process will be there. Diffusion of O2 and CO2 between the blood and tissues. Okay. And here in the tissues what will happen? Catabolic process will occur. Utilization of O2 by the cells and release of CO2. This is called cellular respiration. Okay. This is the respiration process. So now we will enter into the main thing, that is mechanism of breathing. Actually it is very easy topic. Actually you have to understand it. In digestion and absorption it is like it is easy, but this one is super easy. Until and unless if you imagine it nicely, no, you will understand it very easily and permanently you will remember. Need not to mug up. It's all like imagination and understanding. Okay, so listen carefully. This is inspiration process. Okay, this is the diagram from NCERT. So what happens? I have mentioned the step-by-step process. Okay, so you need not to take any tension. I will explain so easily. First thing we learn to know, like below the lung there is a dome-shaped diaphragm and laterally ribs are present, right? In between the ribs muscles are there. Okay, external intercostal muscles and internal intercostal muscles. In inspiration and expiration only external intercostal muscles will be used. Okay, and diaphragm. What happens in inspiration? Now you breathe one time. When you breathe, your muscles feel contracted, right? All the muscles feel contracted. At that time muscles feel contracted, no? This diaphragm which is in dome shape, it will contract. Okay, this dome shaped diaphragm will become flat. Now this dome shaped diaphragm becomes fat, means this much air is occupied. No, this much air will be present. Okay, space will be there. This much space will be there. Okay, that is why when you inspire, this diaphragm muscle will contract and dome shape will become flat and it will come lower. Space will increase. Okay, and next what will happen? In between the ribs, external intercostal muscles will be there. This external intercostal muscles also will contract. Okay, external intercostal muscles will contract and ribs and sternum will be raised. if they contract, it will move upwards. Okay, it will move upwards and raised and upwards, and here space will increase. Okay, see, listen. Now the diaphragm is dome shaped. When it contracts, it will come down. No, see, some volume is increased. It is anterior posterior axis volume. We know that this is a human. Okay, please imagine it is a human. It is this is anterior. I told, no, anterior opening, that is mouth, posterior opening anus. So it is anterior side. This is posterior side. Below is posterior side. Front side is ventral and back side is dorsal. Okay, now you just imagine, this is front side. Okay, this diaphragm, this diaphragm is there. No, diaphragm from this position, it is like a dome shape like this. Now it is becoming like this, means from anterior posterior axis the volume has increased. No, see, anterior posterior axis volume has increased due to contraction of diaphragm. Now external intercostal muscle contraction, ribs are raised. Ribs here, sternum, ribs are attached to sternum and vertebral column. If these ribs are raised, it is going backward and outward, then dorsal and ventral axis, it has increased. No, volume has increased dorsal to ventral. You understand what I am saying? When diaphragm is contracted, see, diaphragm is contracted, anterior posterior, see, anterior posterior axis is volume is increased. Ribs are attached to sternum to vertebral column. Okay, those are raised, means they came outward, means what, dorsally and ventrally the volume is increased. Okay, first step is diaphragm contracted, and second step is external intercostal muscles are contracted. Now these muscles are contracted, it will go upward, it will go downward. What happened? Volume of thorax is increased. Volume of thorax is increased means what I told you, whatever the thoracic cavity, the same will be influenced to the pulmonary volume. No, thoracic volume increased, so pulmonary volume also increased. Now pulmonary volume is increased than before. See, I will just explain. It was the lung. After inspiration, the lung volume is increased because thoracic volume is increased. Before, it was, pressure was normal. Now you see, the same amount of pressure will be there, but volume has increased. No, so pressure will become less when compared to before. See, that is why intrapulmonary pressure, that is why intra means inside the lung, pulmonary pressure will become negative, less it will become. So what happens? Atmospheric pressure will be more. Okay, atmospheric pressure generally normal it will be there, but how exchange of gases will occur? From high concentration to low concentration. It was normal before, but after inspiration pressure will be decreased. No, intrapulmonary pressure decreased, so comparatively atmospheric pressure will be more. No, that's why air enter the lung. See, atmospheric pressure will be comparatively more, that's why air will enter the lung, and what happens? Inspiration will occur. See, once again I will explain. It is so simple, you just have to understand it nicely. Okay, see, first step is inspiration. You remember this arrow marks. Okay, inspiration, they will just give you this diagram and they will ask what is it inspiration or expiration. So everybody inhale. When we inhale, you feel like some muscles are getting contracted. So the muscles are these muscles. First one is diaphragm. Diaphragm is a dome shape. When it will be contracted, it will go downward, okay, and it will become flat. See, it will become flat, and anterior posterior axis volume will increase, okay. Second one is what? Contraction of the external intercostal muscles. What happens? Ribs and sternums are raised. See, it is raising outward. Arrows see outward. So dorso-ventrally axis volume will be increased. Dorsally ventrally axis will be increased. What happens after increasing? You only imagine, from the diaphragm, anterior posterior axis volume will be increased, and contraction of the external intercostal muscle, dorsally and ventrally axis will be, volume axis will be increased. So what happens? Volume of thorax is increased. If volume of thorax is increased, then pulmonary volume is also increased. If volume is increased, see, volume is increased, what happens? Pulmonary pressure, intrapulmonary pressure, remember intrapulmonary, inside the lung, negative, it will become negative, and atmospheric pressure will be more comparatively, so air will be entering the lung. Simple, okay. So here are some points. Increase in thoracic volume. See, I told no, increase in thoracic volume will increase as the pulmonary volume. I told no, because the lung is in close proximity to the thorax lining. That is why increase in the thorax volume increases the pulmonary volume. Increase in the pulmonary volume. Now volume has increased. That's why intrapulmonary pressure is decreased. See students, this is actually all the points which I am discussing are from NCERT. If you read and understand this, then NCERT will be very easy for you. So in inspiration, see, atmospheric pressure will be more than pulmonary pressure. So this is it. This is all about inspiration. Just this is like some explanation. Breathing. We are discussing about mechanism of breathing only, no? Breathing occurs in two stages, inspiration and expiration. Inspiration means what? Atmospheric air is drawn in. Expiration means what? Alveolar air. From alveoli, CO2 will be coming. From blood vessels, CO2 will enter into alveoli, no? From alveoli, CO2 will go outside. From atmosphere, O2 will be there, no? O2 will enter into the alveoli and blood vessels. See, inspiration means atmospheric air is drawn in. Expiration means alveolar air is released out. Okay. Movement of air inside and outside. How it is occurring? I told no, pressure gradient. Through pressure only, no. Now here volume of thorax is increased. Pulmonary volume is increased. Intrapulmonary volume is increased means what? Pressure decreases, no? Intrapulmonary pressure is decreased. So comparatively atmospheric pressure will be more. So more to less, high to low concentration only, no? So depends on pressure gradient between the lung and atmosphere, from atmosphere and lung, okay. So you have to remember one more thing. What creates a pressure gradient? You only guess. You saw, no, this diaphragm is contracting and this external intercostal muscle is contracting. That is why what's happening? Volume is increasing. Volume of thorax increasing, pulmonary volume is increasing, intrapulmonary pressure decreases and air enters inside, no? So diaphragm, external intercostal muscle makes a gradient. Internal intercostal muscle also involved, but I will tell the function of it in the next slide. So this is all about inspiration. Now expiration. Expiration is very simple. Now you understood the inspiration, no? It's just reverse. Now air has entered, okay. What happens? Now this diaphragm muscle which was contracting, now it relaxes. It became flat, no. Now again it will go to its original position. See, look at the arrows. It is going to its original position. Means arc upwards. Again it is arcing upwards. Means what happens? Volume is decreasing in anterior posterior axis, volume is decreasing, and you can see ribs and sternum here, they are reduced to original position by relaxation of external intercostal muscles. Again external intercostal muscles are also relaxing, so it is coming backward to its original position. What happened now? Ventrodorsal volume is also decreased comparative to inspiration. What happens? See, volume of thorax decreases, and volume of thorax is decreases, and pulmonary volume also decreases. And what happened now? See, the lung was like this, no? It was contracted, no? Muscles were contracted and volume was increased, so pulmonary pressure was less, intrapulmonary pressure. Now it is coming again back to normal position. Now the pressure is more. See, intrapulmonary pressure, look at the lung size, pressure will be more from all the sides, no? So intrapulmonary pressure is more, and atmospheric pressure in comparison will be less. That's why air will move from high concentration to low concentration. Air is expelled from the lung. So once again I will tell what is expiration. First of all, diaphragm will be relaxed. It will go back to normal position, that is arcs in dome position. And next one is relaxation of external intercostal muscles. What happens? Ribs and sternum come back to normal position, and ventrodorsal axis volume is decreased. Here it is anterior posterior axis volume is decreased, hence volume of thorax decreases, volume of pulmonary volume decreases. Intrapulmonary, see, volume decreases means intrapulmonary pressure increases, air expelled from lungs. Okay, so little bit here, few points are there. See, we can increase the strength of inspiration. This is normal inspiration. Okay, normal inspiration and expiration, diaphragm muscles are contracted and external intercostal muscles are contracted. Now you want forced inspiration, you want more amount of air. When you are running, you need more air for breathing. Now normally you are breathing, you won't even realize that you are breathing, because that's normally diaphragm is contracting, external intercostal muscle is contracting, diaphragm is relaxing, external intercostal muscle is relaxing. You don't feel it because this is normal respiration and breathing. Now if it is like you are running, jogging, you need more air. More air means more contraction will occur. More inspiration means more contraction of muscles will occur. No, see, when we increase the strength of inspiration or expiration, additional muscles also will contract. What are those additional muscles? I told, no, internal intercostal muscles and abdominal muscles. These muscles will contract, and forced expiration, quick forceful expiration, more expiration or more inspiration will occur. Okay, you have to remember, healthy human breathe for 12 to 16 times per minute. This is important. Okay, 12 to 16 times. Now what is the volume of air involved in breathing? All that volume we can calculate or estimate by spirometer. Remember this. Okay, through spirometer we can estimate the volume of air, how much volume of air is involving, just to know that okay, specific volume of air is involving or not, to know the pulmonary function is normal or not. Okay, so this is all about inspiration and expiration. Quick comparison. See, this is so important, and if you understand and remember this, nobody can make you forget this. Okay, see, inspiration, what happened? Quickly recall with me, because you learned it so well with me. First one is contraction of diaphragm will occur. Anterior posterior axis volume will increase because it will become flat, no, from dome shape. Anterior posterior axis will be increased. Contraction of external intercostal muscles, what happens? Dorsoventral axis will increase, volume of thoracic cavity increased, therefore volume of pulmonary cavity increases. If volume increases, what happens? Intrapulmonary pressure will be negative, atmospheric pressure will be more than intrapulmonary pressure. From high pressure to low pressure, air will go, no? So that's why air will enter into the lung. Inspiration occurred. Now expiration means what? The relaxation of the diaphragm. Anterior posterior axis volume will be decreased because it will be arched upwards, and relaxation of external intercostal muscle. Dorsoventral axis will be decreased. Actually it is decreased. Dorsoventral axis will be decreased because relaxing, they are coming back to the normal position, no? Dorsoventral axis will be decreased. Volume of thoracic cavity will decrease, volume of pulmonary cavity will decrease. Intrapulmonary, now volume is decreasing means what? Pressure increases. Intrapulmonary pressure increases, intrapulmonary pressure is more than atmospheric pressure, that's why air will be expelled from the lung and expiration will occur. So this is the mechanism of inspiration and expiration. So we will go forward, students. This is also so important topic and questions will come from this topic, and this is so easy topic. Once if you imagine and understand, no, you cannot forget this topic only. So just imagine, see, I bought the NCERT definitions also, so that quickly we can read this, okay? First you have to understand, okay? I will explain it very detailedly. If you understand it, you will remember it. First, imagine this is your lung, okay? Whenever if you inhale the O2, always O2, not O2, any breathing process will occur. Always in the lung, some amount of air will be remained. No matter you are taking inspiration or expiration, means inhalation of O2, sorry, means inspiration is occurring or expiration is occurring, every time there will be a residual volume, means remaining volume. Residual volume will be there in the lung. No matter inspiration or expiration occurs, that volume is 1100 ml to 1200 ml, okay? So this is the normal volume which will always be there with gases, okay? Lung will not be empty, otherwise it will collapse. That's why residual volume will be there. Now imagine this no air is present here except residual volume. Now you are inspiring, sorry, one second. Okay, this is the residual volume. Always this volume is present. And what is tidal volume? Tidal volume means now you are normally inspiring, that fixed volume will be there, 500 ml. Now you are expiring, the same tidal volume 500 ml will be released out. That is called tidal volume, okay? Now inspiratory reserve volume means what? Now tidal volume, normal inspiration you took, means listen, normal inspiration means you won't even realize that inspiration is taking place and expiration is taking place, no? This is normal inspiration. Now you want more inspiration, forceful inspiration. When you are taking forceful air inside, that is inspiratory reserve volume, okay? Inspiratory reserve volume is 2500 ml to 3000 ml. This is inspiratory reserve volume. Now you understood this, what is inspiratory reserve volume. Now normal residual volume is there, okay? Expiratory reserve volume. What is expiratory reserve volume? Now normal inspiration you will take, extra volume extra. Now normal inspiration you will take, normal expiration it will happen. Now you want to remove more air, forced expiration you want to do. Okay, so this remaining which was reserved, expiratory reserve volume which is reserved, that also if it goes, then forced expiration. Okay, so once again I will explain this. Actually it is simple if you understand. So in respiratory volumes and capacities, in the lung always some amount of volume of gases will be present, that is called as residual volume, that is 1100 ml to 1200 ml. Okay, so now this is tidal volume. Tidal volume means what? Normal inspiration you are doing, you are inhaling, okay, inhaling 500 ml and exhaling, expiration 500 ml, that is tidal volume. Now you are inhaling, okay, inspiration took place, now you are expiring the normal air, normal expiration is taking place, tidal volume will go out, and inside there will be expiratory reserve volume. Reserve means some reserved. Okay, now this normal tidal volume is removed, and if you do forceful expiration, this expiratory reserve volume also will go outside. Okay, next one is inspiratory reserve volume. Now tidal volume you will inspire, if you want to inspire more air, forced inspiration, at that time this volume will be occupied, inspiratory reserve volume. Once let us read the definitions, you will understand what is tidal volume. Tidal volume means, what did I tell you? It's normal inspiration and expiration. No, it has fixed normal inspiration volume and expiration volume 500 ml. We told no, in respiration 12 to 16 times per minute breathing will occur, 12 to 16 times. So if you multiply into 500, 12 and 16, you will get how much ml of inspiration? Tidal volume 6000 to 8000 ml per minute. Generally remember 500 ml. If in suppose in exam they ask, these are the breaths per minute. No, how much tidal volume will be inhaled? If these many breaths are occurring, for per one breath it is 500 ml. For 12 breath it is 6000 ml. For 16 breath it is 8000 ml. Okay, let us read the definition of tidal volume. Tidal volume is volume of air inspired or expired during normal respiration. Okay, normal inspiration and normal expiration. It is approximately 500 ml. A healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6000 to 800 ml, 12 to 16. Okay, ml per minute. This is tidal volume. I think there is no doubt. Now inspiratory reserve volume. What did I tell? Inspiratory reserve volume means, now normal inspiration you took, okay, normal inspiration, you want to inspire more amount of air, okay, forceful inspiration, because you want to collect more inspired air, then it is called as inspiratory reserve volume. See, a person inspired by forceful inspiration. If a person inspire normal inspiration and forceful inspiration, total capacity, normal inspiration is tidal volume, after normal inspiration forceful inspiration will be done, no, that is called as inspiratory reserve volume. It is 2500 ml to 3000 ml. Now what is expiratory volume? Now normal inspiration will occur, normal expiration will occur. After normal expiration, by forceful expiration, the volume of air will be removed, no, that is called as expiratory reserve volume. See, a person can expire by forceful expiration. It is 1000 ml to 1100 ml. Next, residual volume. What is residual volume? Volume of air which is remaining in the lung even after forceful expiration. See, it is always present in the lung. No, if you do, this is normal inspiration, normal expiration. If you do forceful expiration also, this air will be remained, that is residual volume. Volume of air remaining in the lung even after forceful expiration. It is 1100 ml to 1200 ml. From all these volumes, if we add, we will get capacities. Okay. Now we will learn here capacities. Just I explained the meaning of this through the NCERT definitions. Now, see, this is normal inspiration and expiration. Generally, this expiratory reserve volume also will be present in the lung as residual volume only. Residual will never escape. But this expiratory reserve volume is there, no? If we do forceful expiration, what happens? This expiratory reserve volume will go out. No, otherwise it will be in the lung only. So what will happen? This residual volume and expiratory reserve volume, this two will form functional residual capacity. Okay, if nobody does forceful expiration, then this also will be remain in the lung only. No, that's why functional residual capacity. Functional residual capacity is residual volume, expiratory reserve volume. Now, this is inspiratory reserve volume. No, now inspiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity means what? How much a person can inspire to the maximum. Tidal volume is normal inspiration and inspiratory reserve volume is after forceful inspiration. After forceful inspiration, inspiratory reserve volume will happen. That is total known as inspiratory capacity. Tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume. In the similar way, expiratory capacity. Expiratory capacity means what? Total volume of air expired both by tidal volume, normal expiration, and after forceful expiration. Means what? Tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume, that is known as expiratory capacity. I think you are done clear about the functional residual capacity and inspiratory capacity and expiratory capacity. Now, what is vital capacity? Let us read the definitions of these three first of all. Functional residual capacity, expiratory capacity, inspiratory capacity. First, inspiratory capacity. What is inspiratory capacity? I told, no, normal inspiration and also forceful inspiration. Total volume of air a person can inspire after normal expiration. Now, normal expiration he has done. Means normally expiration tidal volume is removed. Now what he will do again? Inspiration he will do. No, normal tidal volume will occur, normal inspiration, and next forceful inspiration after normal expiration. Okay, see, total volume of air a person can inspire after normal expiration, that is tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. Expiratory capacity means what? What is meant by expiratory capacity? Now, volume of air removed. Expiratory capacity means tidal volume expiration, normal expiration and forced expiration. How we can do normal expiration? First of all, some air is inspired, then only we can do normal expiration and then forceful expiration. That is what they are saying here. See, expiratory capacity is total volume of air a person can expire after normal expiration. Okay, that is tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume. Okay, I think it's clear. Next one is functional residual capacity. I told no, normally this residual volume will be there and expiratory reserve volume also will be there until and unless forceful expiration will occur. No? See, definition you see. Volume of air that will remain in the lung after normal expiration. See, normal inspiration, normal expiration is done. If normal expiration, this one will not be there. Okay, normal inspiration you have done, normal expiration you have done. Now this expiratory reserve volume will be there. If you do forceful expiration, then this will go away. So that's what they are saying. Functional residual capacity means volume of air that will remain in the lung after normal expiration. That is ERV and RV. Next is vital capacity. What is vital capacity? Vital capacity means what? Total volume we can breathe in. Okay. Name itself vital capacity with R function. The residual volume always it will be present. Exclude it. Vital capacity means inspiring this volume, inspiring this tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. See, maximum volume of air a person can breathe in. Maximum how much volume a person can breathe in. This expiratory reserve volume has been removed. Then what happened? This will be added up. Normal tidal volume will be added up. Again inspiratory forced inspiration will occur. So this is the vital capacity. Maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after forceful expiration. Okay. So what is total lung capacity? Total lung capacity means total volume of air a lung can accommodate. That is residual volume, ERV, TV, IRV. See, they can ask in other format also. Normally this is the thing you know, but they can mix and they can ERV plus TV means what? ERV and TV means what? It is expiratory capacity. No, they can give RV plus expiratory capacity plus IRV. Okay, so like that they can ask, but just remember this overview. See, total lung capacity, total volume of air accommodated in the lung at the end of forced inspiration. This include RV, residual, ERV, TV, IRV. Okay. See, spirometer will measure all the volumes and capacities, but spirometer cannot measure residual volume. Residual volume we can't measure because it always be present. No, we can't measure residual volume. And anything related to residual volume like TLC, total lung capacity. Total lung capacity also includes RV, no? Residual volume. Then we can't calculate the total lung capacity. And functional residual capacity, it includes RV and ERV, no? That's why we can't measure the RV, TLC, total lung capacity, functional residual capacity by spirometer, because others all we can calculate. This is all about the respiratory volumes and capacities. Next one is exchange of gases. Exchange of gases is also simple topic. You have to understand it. I will try my best to explain. But we already learned this thing in the previous slide. See, in the alveoli, see, this is the blood tissue. Here what happens? Oxygenated blood through systemic artery. It carries oxygenated blood. Oxygen will be given to tissue and CO2 will be given to the systemic vein, which carry the deoxygenated blood. Okay, and then it goes near the heart, and then it goes near the pulmonary artery. It transports the CO2 rich air, and in alveoli O2 will be more. So CO2 will go into alveoli, O2 will come into the pulmonary vein. So this is the process of exchange of gases. So here you can see in two places exchange of gases will occur. First at the alveolar site. Here it is the primary site of exchange of gases, alveolus. Second is exchange of gases also occur between the tissues and the blood. Tissues and the blood also exchange of gases will occur. How exchange of gases will occur? Based on pressure or concentration gradient. Every time from high pressure to low pressure only exchange of gases will occur, that is by simple diffusion. See, rate of diffusion. Now diffusion process only, this exchange of gases are occurring. Now what are the factors affecting the rate of diffusion? Now I already told you, in the nostrils it humidifies the air, moisture will be provided, so the TC passage should be there. First, solubility of gases. If the gases are easily soluble, then easily transferred, and thickness of the membrane. If the here diffusion process is occurring between alveoli and this blood vessel. Now this membranes will be there, two membrane of the alveoli and membrane of the blood, means blood vessel. It should be thin. If the membrane is thin, easily it will be transported. If it is thick, so it will be difficult to be transported. So it depends on solubility of the gases and thickness of the membrane. See, in atmosphere different type of gases will be there, like O2, CO2, N2, everything. But among this all gases, now O2 will be there, this pressure by the individual gas in mixture of gases, it is called partial pressure. Okay, pressure by the individual gas in mixture of the gases is called partial pressure, that is PO2, PCO2. Okay, now the same thing which I discussed, this is what exchange of gases, how gases are getting exchanged. I explained you in the first third slide. I think the same thing we are discussing here. I think it will become little bit easy this time. See students, so I told you here deoxygenated blood in pulmonary vein. Actually it is pulmonary artery, sorry, I told it is going away from the heart, that's why pulmonary artery. So from pulmonary artery, deoxygenated blood will be going near the alveoli for getting oxygenated, so that it can supply to the tissues. Okay, so you just remember this diagram. If you remember this diagram, you can remember the values also. Here in alveoli, O2 concentration will be more, because O2 from the atmosphere will be coming into alveoli, CO2 will be less. Now exchange of gases will occur, in pulmonary vein also O2 will be less, CO2 will be more. In pulmonary vein, that is here exchange of gases will occur, so here O2 will be more, okay, and CO2 will be less. Now here what happens, in tissues CO2 will be more. All the O2 supplied before will be utilized with glucose and ATP, and CO2 will be produced. So CO2 will be more here and O2 will be less. Okay, this is the process, simple process. How you have to remember the values means, now wherever CO2 is less, wherever CO2 is less, okay, wherever CO2 is less, then remember 40 is the value. Okay, wherever CO2 is more, maximum CO2 value will be 45. Remember as 45. Less CO2 value is 40, and more, wherever CO2 is more, there it will be 45. Okay, and wherever the O2 value is less, see, O2 value, least value will be 40. Okay, and here you can see O2 is more in the alveoli and pulmonary vein. In pulmonary vein 95, In alveoli 104. So once again let us recall. Quickly I will just tell the process. From the heart, away from the heart, pulmonary artery which carries the deoxygenated blood will get oxygenated. CO2 will be given here and O2 will get oxygenated by the diffusion process through the alveoli. So here the pulmonary vein will be oxygenated. Oxygenated means O2 will be more, CO2 will be less. CO2 less means what did I tell you? 40 is the value. O2 is more in the pulmonary vein means 95. In the alveoli what happens? O2 will be more and CO2 will be less, because from atmospheric air O2 will be more. No, CO2 less means what did I told? 40 is the least value and O2 is more. No, here 104. Now the same pulmonary systemic artery will take the oxygenated blood to the tissues. In tissues what happens? CO2 will be more because O2 will be utilized and CO2 is produced. No, if CO2 is more, then I told highest value of CO2 will be 40 and here O2 will be less. O2 highest value is 40. Okay, here CO2 will be more, highest value of CO2 is 45. O2 value is less, O2 value is less means 40. Here what happens? O2 will be given to the tissue and CO2 will be given to the systemic vein. In systemic vein what happens? CO2 value is more, CO2 value more means what? 45. Okay, O2 will be less, O2 less means what is the value of O2? 40. So remember like this, and atmospheric O2 will be 159 and CO2 is 0.3. Okay, so this is the exchange of gases. Here gradient of oxygen, from where oxygen is moving, from alveoli high concentration is there, alveoli to blood and blood to tissues. And gradient of CO2, CO2 is more in the tissues, tissues to blood and blood to alveoli. See gradient. Now solubility of CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than O2. Solubility, see students, CO2 solubility is 20 to 25 times more, means what? More diffusion will occur with CO2. Okay, solubility we told, and I told no, this diffusion membrane thickness also will interfere with the diffusion process. No, see, main diffusion, alveolar diffusion will occur in the alveoli and blood vessel. No, see, this is alveoli. What is diffusion membrane? It is made up of 3 membranes. See, first one is alveolar membrane. In alveoli you can see these singled cells. No, squamous epithelium of alveolar wall. Squamous epithelial cells are there, one cell thick layer. Okay, and you can see this is blood vessel. No, blood vessel, endothelium of blood capillary, another layer, and basement membrane is between the squamous epithelium of alveolar wall and endothelium of the blood capillary. See, basement membrane. What basement membrane do, sir? It supports both, okay, squamous epithelium and single layer of endothelium also. Okay, so see, diffusion membrane or respiratory membrane, it has thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, basement membrane and single layer. Both are single layer only, single layer of cells of capillary. Okay, total thickness of this diffusion membrane, this diffusion membrane thickness is there? No, it is less than 1 millimeter. Okay, now see, all factors in our body, whatever the factors in our body are there, that is favorable for diffusion. Diffusion process nicely will occur because the factors in our body favors to that. Okay, that is O2 from where it goes, you only just tell me once again. Alveoli to blood and blood to tissues. CO2 from tissues to blood and blood to alveoli. Okay, this is about the exchange of gases. Now transport of gases. Transport of gases is the second last topic, and I think this is so easy, I can say, but I hope I will make you guys understand. Okay, first take a deep breath, because you learned so much today, because this is so conceptual thing. It's all based on understanding and imagination. Okay, transport of gases. So first one is oxygen transport. See, in alveoli oxygen concentration will be more, so from alveoli to blood vessel diffusion will occur, no, alveolar diffusion. So how oxygen will be diffused into the blood vessels? It will be diffused into two types. Okay, 97% of 97% of oxygen will be diffused in the RBC, and 3% will be dissolved in the plasma. In the blood vessels, plasma will be there. In plasma, RBC cells will be there. Okay, 3% of O2 will be randomly dissolved in the plasma, and 97 will be dissolved in the RBC. Okay, and you have to remember transport of O2 and CO2, how it occurs through the blood vessels only. No, in blood vessels, blood is the medium. Okay, blood is the medium for transport of O2 and CO2. So this is the thing, how much percent of 97% of oxygen will transport by RBC and 3% by dissolved plasma. See, RBC molecule is there, no, it is a red pigmented molecule. In RBC hemoglobin will be there. Okay, hemoglobin, this is the hemoglobin structure which I made. Hemoglobin has 4 heme part and 4 globulin chain. Okay, this is heme, this is globulin chain. Inside heme there will be Fe2 plus iron molecule. Okay, see, this is hemoglobin, red colored pigment, which is present in RBC. Now oxygen will be attached to the RBC. No, where specifically oxygen will be attached in the RBC? In the hemoglobin molecule. Hemoglobin molecule in the heme part of the hemoglobin. So 4 heme parts are there, no? So maximum 4 oxygen molecules can be transported in each RBC. Okay, each hemoglobin molecule transport 4 oxygen molecules. In RBC, hemoglobin molecule will be there. Hemoglobin molecule will transport 4 oxygen molecules. Okay, see, binding of oxygen to hemoglobin, it is reversible manner, because oxygen will be attached to hemoglobin. Okay, again oxygen will be released and CO2 will be attached, so it is a reversible manner. If oxygen is attached to hemoglobin, then it is called carboxyhemoglobin. Carboxyhemoglobin. See, binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. How binding of oxygen with the hemoglobin occurs? If partial pressure of O2, primarily related with the partial pressure of O2. If O2 partial pressure is more, then O2 molecules will be easily attaching to the hemoglobin molecule. Okay, primarily related to the partial pressure of O2, and PCO2, H plus, and temperature also other factors. So this is about oxygen transport. Still it is there, just you have to remember in this slide is oxygen from alveoli in the blood. Okay, 97% will be transported by RBC and 3% in dissolved plasma. Blood is the medium for transport of O2 and CO2. In RBC, hemoglobin molecule is there, that is red colored pigment. Hemoglobin has 4 heme parts and 4 globulin chain parts. Heme has Fe2 plus. Oxygen will attach to heme, maximum 4 molecules of O2 will be attached to each hemoglobin. Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is reversible carboxyhemoglobin, primarily related to partial pressure of O2. Okay. Other factors are PCO2, H plus and temperature. Now this is all, that's it guys. If you read this no, then that's it, you're done with the transport of gases. It is like showing so much in the NCERT, but if you understand this, then you will understand everything. Okay, I hope I will help you in this. First, now oxygen is transported into the blood in this forms. Okay, now in the tissues, now blood will be transported to the tissues. Now what happens? Blood is transported. Okay, now in the tissues what happens? Oxygen will be given. See, 4 heme parts and 4 globulin chain parts. Here what happens? O2 will be dissociated. Okay, because here CO2 concentration will be more. No, now CO2 wants to attach to the globulin chain part. That's why O2 will be released here. O2 glucose forms ATP and CO2. Okay, now CO2 concentration will be more. No, now CO2 wants to attack. That's why what happens? 20 to 25% CO2 will attach to the RBC hemoglobin globin chain. Okay, 20 to 25%, and 7% what happens? CO2 will be dissolved in the plasma outside the RBC molecule. And next what happens? Major part, that is 70% of CO2 will be in the bicarbonate form. What happens means, this CO2 will go into RBC. CO2 will mix with water and forms H2CO3 in the presence of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. This carbonic anhydrase enzyme is present in the RBC and also some amount in plasma. Remember, this is important point. So CO2 plus water will form H2CO3 in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, and this H2CO3 will forms H plus ion and HCO3 minus, that is in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. 70% of CO2 will be in the form of bicarbonate ion. Okay, 70%, and from RBC this bicarbonate ion will go back to plasma. So this is what it is. One more thing, see Bohr effect. This is not important, but I will just tell for the safer side. Bohr effect means decreased affinity of oxyhemoglobin due to increased CO2 and H plus concentration. Okay, Bohr effect means what? Here what happens? Affinity of oxygen is oxyhemoglobin is decreased. No, because CO2 concentration became more. That's when of dissociation of oxygen is occurring, right? That is called Bohr effect. Decreased affinity of oxyhemoglobin due to increased PCO2 or H plus concentration. Now what happens? Here you are done with Bohr effect. One more thing you have to remember, that is, here bicarbonate ions will go into plasma. No, this negative ion will be reduced. Just to balance that, chloride ion from the plasma will go into RBC. That is called chloride shift, and it will be seen in this case. Okay, in the tissues. Now what are the conditions why this is happening? Why this CO2 is going near the hemoglobin part, in the plasma 7%, in hemoglobin 20 to 25%, and in bicarbonate form 70%. Why? Because PCO2 concentration is more in tissues, H plus concentration is more, temperature is more, PO2 level is less. That's why dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin will occur. That is it, students, in tissues. Now in alveoli of lungs, what happens in alveoli of lungs? Now this, if you remember, your life is set. So you can see here in hemoglobin RBC, hemoglobin is there, no? In globin chain CO2 is present 20 to 25%, and bicarbonate ions 70%, and in plasma 7%. In the alveoli, what happens? What are the conditions in the alveoli of the lung? PO2 concentration is more, PCO2 concentration is less, H plus concentration is less, temperature concentration is less. In alveoli we know PO2 is more, then all this will become less. In tissues PCO2 is more and all these concentrations will increase, PO2 will decrease. So what is happening here? Now here PO2 is more, that's why CO2 is releasing and going into alveoli. That is called Haldane effect. Decreased affinity of hemoglobin with carbon dioxide due to increased in PO2. Now what happens? Now CO2 will be broken from the hemoglobin and go to alveoli. Plasma CO2 will go to alveoli. Here in the plasma bicarbonate ion was there, no, 70%. They will go back again into RBC. With H plus ion it forms H2CO3 and again dissociate to H2O and CO2 in the presence of carbonic anhydrase. Okay, now again this is going inside, no, bicarbonate is going inside, and chloride ion is also there. Again, to maintain the negative charge, chloride ion will go outside the plasma. That's why reverse chloride shift. So this is what it is, transport of gases. I think it is so clear now. One more thing, every 100 ml of oxygenated blood, okay, now through systemic arteries oxygenated blood is given to the tissues, no, so every 100 ml of oxygenated blood, 100 ml oxygenated blood is delivering how much oxygen? 5 ml of oxygen to tissues. And every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood is there, no, how much it is delivering CO2 to alveoli? Deoxygenated blood will be going to lungs, alveoli only, no, to get oxygenated. How much CO2 it is giving? 40 ml. Remember this is so important. It's not 40, it is 4 ml. Yeah. So this is what it is. Remember this value, 5 ml and 4 ml. 100 ml of oxygenated blood, 5 ml of O2 to tissues. O2 will be given to tissues and CO2 to alveoli. Okay, 100 ml of deoxygenated blood, 4 ml of CO2 to alveoli. Now PO2 is there, no, PO2 is an important factor, whatever it is, to form carboxyhemoglobin or oxyhemoglobin. PO2 is an important factor for binding. Okay, next one is RBC. RBC contain high concentration of anhydrase, carbonic anhydrase. I told you, no, and minute amount is present in plasma too. Okay, so you are done with this. Now we have to discuss about oxygen dissociation curve. In oxygen dissociation curve, see students, here it is percentage of saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, percentage of saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen, and this is partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so what happens, you can see this is a sigmoid curve will be seen in oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, so if you see, this is a right shift of the curve and left shift of the curve. Why right shift and left shift will occur? See, for example, if we take this point of the curve, here less oxygen is there and saturation, see, percentage of saturation, O2, how much percent of O2 saturation is there with oxygen? See, very less, no. same amount of oxygen, less saturation of oxygen in the hemoglobin. Means what is the condition? O2 is same and oxygen saturation with hemoglobin is less. Why? Because CO2 is more. Okay, CO2 is combining with hemoglobin, that's why oxygen saturation with hemoglobin is decreasing. What are the conditions when saturation of oxygen with hemoglobin is lesser? PCO2 is more and temperature is more and H plus ions are more. This occurs in tissues, we all know. Okay, if the shift is to the left, you see same amount of oxygen and saturation, see saturation is so much, means what? It is in the lungs. PO2 concentration is more, CO2 is less, temperature is less, H plus is less. Sigmoid curve. Okay, I think I just told a mistake here. Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. Okay, if it is binding with carbon dioxide, then carboxyhemoglobin. Now this is the second last part, I can say. So this is regulation of respiration. Respiration is regulated in two processes, that is neural regulation and chemical regulation. Neural means CNS is involved. In CNS, you see this is forebrain, this is midbrain and this is hindbrain. Hindbrain contains pons, medulla and cerebellum. Okay. So here in medulla, main center is there for respiration, that is respiratory rhythm center. This center helps in regulation of respiration. For example, if we send a signal to this respiratory rhythm center, it causes contraction of external intercostal muscle. Respiration will be taking place. Okay, for 2 seconds it will be taking place. Now expiration is the next process. No, respiratory rhythm center helps in contraction of the external intercostal muscle and inspiration will be taking place. Now there should be some negative impact on the respiratory rhythm center, that's why it should be inhibited, so that expiration also starts, means relaxation of external intercostal muscle should start. No, that is why in pons region pneumotaxic center is present. This pneumotaxic center will show negative signal, so that the contraction of the external intercostal muscle was happening. Now relaxation of external intercostal muscle will occur, expiration will occur. This is neural regulation, respiratory rhythm center in the medulla and pneumotaxic center in the pons region. In chemical regulation, what happens? In the respiratory rhythm center in medulla only, next close to the respiratory rhythm center, chemosensitive area will be there. This chemosensitive area is sensitive to CO2 and H plus ions. Whenever in aortic arch and carotid artery CO2 and H plus concentration is more, at that time generally oxygen respiration regulation means what? O2 should be there and CO2 should be removing out. No, when CO2 and H plus concentrations are more in the aortic arch and carotid artery, receptors will be there. These receptors will send a signal or activate the chemosensitive area. Chemosensitive area is sensitive to CO2 and H plus. No, it will give a positive signal to respiratory rhythm center to eliminate the CO2 and H plus. It will make a necessary adjustment to eliminate the CO2 and H plus. Okay. In this neural regulation and chemical regulation, O2 role is not at all there. O2 role is not there in regulation of respiration. Okay. Regulation of respiratory rhythm center. In regulation of respiratory rhythm center, O2 role is not there, insignificant. Okay. This is about regulation of respiration, and this is the last part of the chapter, that is disorders of respiratory system. There are three disorders discussed in the NCERT. First one is asthma, emphysema, occupational disorder. What is asthma? Inflammation of bronchi. I told no, primary, secondary, tertiary bronchi, initial bronchioles, terminal bronchioles. If there is inflammation in that bronchi and bronchioles, what happens? Difficulty in breathing process will be difficult and causes wheezing. Okay, that is called asthma. Next, emphysema. Why it happens? It is mainly due to cigarette smoking. Okay, it is a chronic disorder. Emphysema is a chronic, means it is not sudden disorder. You are smoking for a long time. Chronic means what? Smoking for a long time. After a long time the problem will occur. Okay, what happens? Alveoli walls will be there, no, that will be damaged. What happens if the walls are damaged? Respiratory surface area will be decreased. Okay, now how diffusion of gases will occur? Diffusion of gases will not occur. Okay, that is emphysema. Next, occupational respiratory disorder. Means occupational, some occupations will be there, no, like coal mining, asbestosis, silicosis, etc. Their respiratory problems will occur. See, in certain industries, grinding and stone breaking is happening, grinding is happening, dust will be produced, no, that body can't cope up with that much dust. That's why they are working for a long time, no. So long time exposure gives rise to inflammation. Okay, that leads to fibrosis means what? Fibrous tissue of the lung will be there, no, it will be proliferated and causes fibrosis and lung damage. So that's why should wear protective mask. So that's all, we are at the end. Thank you. I hope I reached to you. I think you understood whatever I explained. See, these are the disorders, and this is neural regulation and chemical regulation. This one, if you remember, no, I think you will understand everything. So what I say is, thank you so much, students. And if you understand this class, no, and if you read this PDF or the class notes, after that if you read the NCERT, then I think this topic will become crystal and clear for you. Thank you so much.